Hey, I'm Molly Sims.
And I'm Emma Gormley. We're two girls obsessed with one thing, beauty.
And by that, we mean everything that makes you look
And feel
beautiful.
We're calling on our favorite health experts, industry insiders, and friends to answer all your beauty questions.
With a drink in hand.
Definitely with a drink in hand.
You're listening to Lipstick on the Rim with Molly Sims. For all the moms listening who have kids, especially in their mid to late 30s, get out your notebook because our guest today is the person you want in your corner when it comes to all things, I know, finance.
Dirty word.
It's a dirty word, finance. Vivian Tu is a former Wall Street trader turned New York Times bestselling author, financial educator, podcast host, and creator behind Your Rich BFF. She's on a mission to make financial literacy accessible for everyone. And she's doing it with humor, clarity, and a serious no BS attitude. With over 8 million followers, her hit show Net Worth and Chill, and her book, it's so good, it's called Rich AF. Well, you got it. Vivian is here to help you take control of your money and your mindset. You guys, today we're going to be breaking down all the money habits that are keeping you broke, how to actually build wealth, which credit cards to get depending on your goals, how to spend smarter without giving up the fun stuff, and her no BS guide to getting rich. My team is obsessed with you. They're taking notes right now. You started
I need you.
You guys have me. I'm really excited.
I'm going to just throw out the elephant in the room. Molly is probably like, yes, Emma needs to learn every single thing on this episode. I have never been good with money. I'm going to put it out there. I can't have a credit card because I don't trust myself. I use a debit card that is literally so like childlike, but that's how I trust myself with money. It's the only way. So I need it more than Molly. Molly's always been a saver.
Well, you know what? Let's already reframe the mindset. You are not bad with money. You're just on your money journey. We're going to get there and I'm going to help you guys today. It'll be easy peasy. It'll be a really fun conversation and we'll take kind of the taboo out of it and we'll turn finance into fun-nance.
Vivian Tu, you started on Wall Street.
Yeah.
You quickly pivoted hard from the online financial world to the online financial education world. What was that like? Where did you start and how did you pivot to helping and educating people like us?
Yeah. So I actually started my career, like you mentioned, as an equities trader at JP Morgan. So the stock jocks that you see in like the TV shows and the movies, like that was me. It was a great job for the first year and a half. I had the most incredible mentor. She was the only other woman on the team. And I was really cutting my teeth in this super fast-paced environment. Ultimately, things do happen. The head of my desk got let go, and he fired half the team, brought in his own guys. And all of a sudden, I was no longer working for her, but working for this new guy. And with him, I mean, I just couldn't get a dang thing right. He didn't like how my nails click-clacked on the keyboard. He didn't like how I did my makeup. And, you know, I think there was just a level of the fact that I was like a girl that bothered him.
Interesting. Does he know that you were on the Forbes 30 under 30 last year and one of the top creators of 2023?
Yes.
You just got Digital Influencer of the Year award in 2024.
Thank you. That is so kind. He didn't, at the time, I didn't have any of these things and he didn't like me. And one day I came into the office with like a long cardigan on and he looked at me, touched his hands together and bowed. And he said, "Is that a kimono?" And as a young Asian woman, you know, I'm the youngest person on the team. I don't have a lot of power. This man is in control of my career, in control of my bonus at the end of the year. It felt like I just got punched in the stomach.
Well, you kind of did.
I did. And I didn't know what to do. So I could feel like this like ball like welling up in my throat. And I ended up running over to my original manager and saying, "I'm going to quit today." And she looked me in the eye and she said, "Don't be an idiot. You don't have another job lined up." And I said, "True, I don't." So I went and I sat right back down. I finished the day. And I went to dinner with her that night and I told her what had happened and she was devastated. She was another Asian woman. She was the only other woman on the team. And she is 15 years my senior. So she had come up in a little bit of a hardier time on Wall Street when people could get away with stuff like this. But this was supposed to be, 2016, 2017. And for him to say something like that to me, I knew it was the beginning of the end. But through her network, I was actually able to meet with another woman. She ended up becoming my first boss at BuzzFeed. To say it was a loss of my identity would have been an understatement. I was someone who was the high school valedictorian, went to the University of Chicago. I thought I was going to work on Wall Street for the rest of my life, but I ended up in digital media strategy sales at BuzzFeed. And it ended up being a great decision because when I got there, all of my new colleagues were like, Viv, explain to us what is happening in our 401k. Like, are these company stock options worth anything? Which health insurance plan did you pick? And I started helping them. And while I was doing this, I had one specific girlfriend. She's my work wife. She was at my wedding. Like, we're still close to this day. And she said, I think you should put this on the internet. And I was like, no, nobody cares. Nobody's going to watch this. And she was like, come on, just do it, just do it, just do it. And she was so annoying and so incessant about it. January 1st of 2021, I put my very first TikTok up, and it was just a simple, hey, like, I'm seeing a lot of crap going around the internet right now during the pandemic. Like, money's not that complicated. I can teach you how to be smart with it. And that was the whole video. And it ended up getting 3 million views.
Yeah, it went, I mean, the girls, it went viral overnight.
Yeah.
That isn't, why do you think?
Well, I just think it was a really financially precarious time. More and more people were really cognizant of how much money they had, and frankly speaking, how little money they had once they, couldn't go into work and were getting stimulus checks. And all of a sudden, you've got everybody talking about GameStop and the meme, like everything was happening right around that time, and it was a time where more people than ever were really, really feeling their lack of financial stability. And so I think people just cared more. They wanted to learn.
And what was that like early on? And we're gonna get to the do's and the don'ts. But what was it like building that platform early on?
Oh, I mean, I only had don'ts because I didn't know what I was doing. The very first video goes viral. I didn't think I was going to become a creator or anything. This was supposed to be for my friends at work so they could just stop asking me questions during my lunch hour. But ultimately, it became a situation where I was just making one new video a day. I was like, I'll figure it out. What's one video? How long could it take? But I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have representation. I mean, my first brand deal, I lowballed myself. I didn't even know what I was asking for. But I made every mistake in the book. But I think now that I have a really healthy business, it's because I learned all of those mistakes early on when the stakes were low, and I'm a lot better for it now.
I'm sorry you went through that.
Thank you.
But it also, isn't it sometimes the best thing when Molly knows I got fired from a job once and it was the biggest kick in the teeth. And when you depart from something that you thought you're going to be at and it's your identity, it's also the best thing that ever happens to you.
Can I tell you guys something though? I'm incredibly petty, and there have been numerous occasions now where my face has been blown up enormous in Times Square, in the mega screen, on top of the NASDAQ, on top of, just the most populated corner. And I think about this because I know where this man lives and he has to take a certain train. And I'm like, I know for a certain this man had to walk by my giant mugshot being plastered in Times Square with my New York Times bestselling book in every bookstore he walks by. And what is he doing? He's the same loser he was because he treats people with disrespect. But guess what I am? I'm a winner. Winners win. And he's got to walk by my face every time and know that he is a loser.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And guess what? You know what? You can say thank you to him.
Yeah.
Because look at you now.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. The habits that are keeping you broke.
Yes.
What are the most common money mistakes we all make and you especially see people making every single day?
I think one of the biggest ones is keeping up with the Joneses. Comparison is the thief of joy. And we've heard that from philosophers throughout the years. But it's really, really easy to get into this cycle. And, knowing your guys' audience, the best example I can give is, first, it's when we're younger women and we're like, oh, my friend has that bag. She has that bracelet. She has that, new thing of clothing. I need to get it. Great. Then you move into the, oh, but then I need to have the right car, or maybe have the right apartment, or maybe even buy the right house. And then suddenly that house isn't big enough and you need a bigger house and you need a nicer car. And suddenly you have kids and you're like, oh, well, this little Johnny goes to this fancy private school. How come my kid's only in public school? Now I got to put him in private school. And all of a sudden you have spent all this money on some things that are important, sure, but maybe on a lot of things that don't really matter and that don't really bring you value. You just did it to be able to say you did it, to say you have it. And I think that's something that I really fell prey to in my early 20s. I bought every designer shoe, every designer accessory, because certainly I couldn't afford the clothes, but I could afford the accessories, because I wanted the cool girls to like me. Let me tell you, no bag made them do that. No bag made them my friends. And at the end of the year, I would look back and I'm like, wow, I've got a closet full of stuff, half of which doesn't even go with anything because it was just some random of the season thing that, was cute for one wear, two wears. But I didn't have much saved and I didn't have much to put towards my future. And that is something that all of us, I think, as human beings, just naturally fall prey to.
Well, the young, the middle, the old, we all have that moment of like, oh, well, they have this and I want that. Or, oh, I can just stretch, I can get it. Or, yes, I know. What's one subtle habit that feels harmless, but actually sabotages your finances long term?
Ooh, okay. A subtle habit that will sabotage you for the long term is the undo button. So you put a little bit of money into your savings account, but then at the end of the month, you want something and you undo it.
You know that feeling when you're doing everything right, eating clean, getting your steps in, hitting your water goals, but you still feel off? Same. That's honestly why I started taking Symbiotica. I was so tired of wasting money on supplements I thought were doing something, but couldn't actually tell. Symbiotica's changed that. These are high-quality liposomal supplements, which basically means your body's able to absorb them. Total game changer. Okay, let me tell you what's in my rotation. I'm obsessed with their magnesium L-threonate, which helps with focus, mood, and sleep. I take it at night, and it's like my brain just powers down in the best way. Then there's the glutathione, which is amazing for skin and digestion. I've noticed way less bloat, and my skin is actually glowing. And for summer, I just added their new Irish sea moss. It's lemon vanilla flavored and supports digestion and energy. I'm also obsessed with their liquid colostrum. It's been amazing for my gut, my skin, and even my hair. Honestly, taking my supplements has become one of those quiet little rituals I actually look forward to, and it just helps me feel more like me. Go to Symbiotica.com/lipstick for 20% off plus free shipping. That's Symbiotica.com/lipstick for 20% off plus free shipping.
What can we all do? Those small little things, like how does it start? Should we keep a diary? Should we keep a ledger? Should we put it in the notes app? Should we get an app? Like, are there certain tools that we could, old school writing it down to put it into whatever?
Yeah, I think something that I love to do is take the thought out of it. So you are actually your own worst enemy. And what you have to remember is that when you go to the gym and you work out your arms, you work out your bicep gets stronger. And you work out your leg, and then your quads get stronger. But if you work out your willpower, it actually makes your willpower weaker. It's the only muscle that gets worse as the more you use it, which is why you make smarter decisions in the morning. You eat that healthy, chia pudding, but then by dinner time, you're elbow deep in a bucket of mac and cheese. So what I always say is,
I'm picking the chicken fingers out and taking the pizza.
Exactly. So like what I would say for folks who struggle with that is to take the guesswork out. Go into your direct deposit, like where you get paid. And you probably set this up the day you got hired and never thought about it again. You have 100% of your paycheck going into one bank account. We're not doing that anymore. You are going to implement a smarter budgeting strategy, which is the 50-30-20 method. So you are going to split 50% of your paycheck into one account for needs. You are going to split 30% into another bank account for wants. And then you're going to split up that final 20% into a savings account. I'll explain why in a second. This is then going to ultimately deposit, twice a month, whenever you get paid, and you will have a direct number that will show you what you can spend on needs. So this is things like rent, basic
Mortgages,
groceries, exactly,
kids,
basic
groceries,
stuff.
life.
And then 30%, you'll be able to see a separate account for the fun stuff. In some high cost of living areas like LA or New York, you might need to add a little bit more to the needs section, a little bit less to the wants. But that 20% in your savings account, that is you today, you taking care of future you. So that 20% that goes into that savings, that is money for actually saving. That is money for debt pay down. That is money for transferring over to your investment account. This automatically divvies up where stuff is. And Emma should mention this a little bit earlier about how she feels really worried about a credit card. She uses a debit card. If you are using the debit card, this is a great way to see exactly how much you have for every single thing. And it's not so strict that it's like, your groceries have to be exactly this amount, because we all know grocery prices fluctuate, but you know what your needs are allocated towards, and you know what your wants are and what your future you needs. And that way you have a little bit of everything set aside, and it's very clean and organized. And that way you're not borrowing from yourself in the future out of that 20 to undo some of those things and have a fun time today.
That's what, my mom and my dad were really good with finance. They taught me to save, right? They were like, especially with modeling, you have access to so many just incredible designers, accessories, bags, whatever. But you don't realize how much it adds up if you do start to save. You're like, wait a second. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So something that's amazing these days is actually something called a high yield savings account. So most of us probably got a bank account the exact same way. It was either the first day of college or maybe the end of high school. And either your parents took you to the bank that they bank at, or it's the first day, you're a freshman, and a bank set up in the college rotunda, and they had all of these things. So it was like a place for you to get your books, a place for you to get your first credit card, a place for you to do all these things. And if you bank with them, it is very challenging to move all of your money away because it's really tedious. It's not hard, it's just a long process. So they're essentially banking on the fact that you won't. And that means most traditional brick and mortar banks will give you pennies in interest, but a high yield savings account will offer you anywhere between 3 to 4% right now in terms of annual percentage yield. So what this means is you put $100 in. With a high yield savings account at the end of the year, you have $103 or $104. Great. At the end of the year with a traditional bank account, based on the FDIC national average right now, you would have $100.42. Would you rather have $3 to $4 or 42 cents? And now imagine that number continues to extrapolate the more money you put into that account. So it's very important that, one, we're making sure that our savings accounts are working hard for us, but two, remembering that it's not about being able to stow away a lot of money. It's about that consistency. We've heard the fable of the ant versus the cricket. The ant spent the entire winter putting, a little bit of food away, a little bit of food away, a little bit of food away. And by the winter, it had a nice little, mound of food to take it, through the winter. But the cricket, who spent the entire spring and summer and fall, faffing about, didn't have enough food for the winter, even though it's a bigger insect and, more technically strong and faster and smarter and better. It's not about how much, it's about how often.
So I have a question for you, because I think that there's probably a lot of people out there that have debt. I mean, that's the one thing I used to have debt. My husband married me and jokes that he paid off my credit card bills. That was kind of my moment where I was like, I am not safe with a credit card. But I do think that there are millions out there with credit card debt, and the idea of saving for them is incredibly daunting. So for someone that feels behind, they feel like, well, how am I supposed to save if I have to get myself out of the hole?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, let's actually talk a little bit about the numbers. So when it comes to debt, not all debt is created equal. You have to look at the interest rate. So with high interest rate debt, anything above 7%, you want to pay that off before you really start doing anything else. Yes, it's important for you to kind of have an emergency fund before that, because just in case something really terrible happens to you, you want to have money to be able to bail you out of that trouble. But things like credit cards, oftentimes car loans, you want to get that paid off ASAP. But if you graduated college around when I did, federal student loans had a 3, 4, 5% handle on them. And we talk so much about, oh, you got to clear all your debt. You got to clear all your debt. You don't.
You don't.
You can slow roll your lower interest rate debt, continue to make the minimum payment, and odds are good you can still make more money investing that money than you would save paying off that debt sooner. So my advice for folks who feel like they need to get out of a hole are a couple options. First and foremost, just organizing your debt to help it mentally seem easier to do. What you're going to do is just rank all of your debt from highest to lowest interest rate. You can make the minimum payment across everything, and then any additional debt pay down funds you have, put towards the debt with the highest interest rate. That is going to help you save on interest and get your debt paid down in the fastest timeline. 2, if you're like, I can't make this happen, the math is not mathing, you can actually think about debt consolidation. So that comes in the form of 2 major things, often a balance transfer card. So if you have, say, a credit card debt with 20 to 30% APR, which is the interest that they charge you every year, you can actually open up a new credit card, which will offer you an introductory offer of 0% for the first 12 to 18 months. You're going to pay a fee for the pleasure of doing so, but you're going to transfer your debt from that previous credit card to this new credit card. This is the key part. You're then going to cut that old credit card and you are not going to spend any more money on it. But then you actually have that debt that you are going to start paying just the principal on, because that's not going to charge you interest for the first 12 to 18 months. It'll help you get essentially a head start and really get it paid down. And that is a really great solution, as well as considering a personal loan. So again, credit card interest rates, 20 to 30%, that is high. If you go to your bank and apply for a personal loan, that'll probably have an interest rate anywhere between 7 to 15%. So again, you get this loan from the bank, you use that loan money to pay off your credit card, you cut the credit card, you don't spend any more on it, that's very important, but then you can pay down the personal loan and you'll spend less on interest and it'll just get the debt paid down faster. So there's always strategies and solutions to get yourself out of that hole, but it is going to take planning and a little bit of time. And my big, big advice for everybody listening, please just don't stick your head in the sand, because the longer you wait and the more you put it off, the worse it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. So many people think wealth building means cutting out the fun. What's your take on that?
No, wealth building means you get to have fun today and tomorrow. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in an immigrant home. So there was a rule. You could not have fun 2 days in a row, right? Like my mom was like, you either have to do homework today and then you can have fun tomorrow, or you have to have fun today and you can do homework tomorrow. But I was never allowed to have fun 2 days in a row. That is, my mom's going to listen to this and be like, why did she say that? But I think that's an important thing to call out, right? Like wealth building and budgeting and being smart with your money means you get to take care of your future self. And that's not to say you have to cut out every little joy that you have today. So you get to have fun today, but you're still being responsible for the future. All I'm asking is people not take either into excess. So don't save all your money, invest all your money, do everything with all your money. And today you're eating, just plain white rice with no other foods. That 1 is not nutritionally dense, but 2, like you are going to burn out. You're not going to be able to do that long term. The thing that is possible long term is to save, to invest, but still have fun, a little bit of fun today, but then know that that money is going to grow and grow over time. And you're going to be able to have fun today. You're going to have fun tomorrow. You're going to have fun when you're 40, 50, 60.
Okay, let's go to credit cards, the good, the bad,
Yeah.
and the rewards. Credit cards get such a bad rap, but you're a big believer in using them wisely.
Yeah.
What is the biggest key? And we also want to talk about airline miles.
Yeah. Let's do it. Okay. So the biggest key with credit cards is to pay your bill in full on time every single month. Frankly, go ahead and just throw that thing on auto pay. Like you should know you have that money. You should not be putting purchases on that credit card that you are not confident you can pay off unless it is an emergency and you truly are in a financial position where you're like, I need to put groceries on this credit card. Otherwise my kids don't eat. That's certainly one conversation. I don't want to sound tone deaf, but you should not be spending on your credit card unless you know you can pay it off. And it's crazy to me that people think the credit card is free money. It is not. The Pied Piper will always come get their due, and you will be in a worse spot if you cannot afford it. So pay it off in full, on time. And frankly, if you don't, those rewards, those miles, those points, they're negated. There's no way those rewards, miles, or points will ever make up for all that interest you have to pay.
Okay, how many credit cards?
Typically, the sweet spot to make sure your credit score is in the healthiest position is 3 to 5.
3 to 5 credit cards. Okay.
3 to 5 credit cards. 3 to 5, baby. Emma, how many do you have?
I have an Amex. That's it. And I have my debit card.
But you don't have, but what about an airline?
I don't think actual airline credit cards, I don't think that loyalty really pays anymore, because it used to be a situation where 20% of the business class seats were paid and 80% were free upgrades given to loyalty members. But the airlines have gotten slick and they've gotten smart to this. Mm-hmm. And so what they'll do is they'll actually offer those seats at a discount. So people will say, hey, okay, if the difference between an economy and a business class seat is $400 normally, but 3 days before the flight, they're offering the upgrades for $150, I'll go in and scoop one.
You'll do the 150.
Yeah, because I'm like, it's $150. Like
I did. Yeah.
You'll but people are starting to pay for all of that. So there's fewer and fewer free upgrades to go around. And ultimately, I have loyalty status with very literally every single major airline. And I don't really think the benefits are worth it. I don't. So I think for me, if you are a travel buff, you should get a card that has great travel rewards points, but a lot of transfer partners. So you can rack up the points with that credit card, but then swap it over to an airline or swap it over to a hotel chain or swap it over to, a cruise line, whatever you want to do. But you don't necessarily need to be loyal to any one company.
That's so interesting. You said 3 to 5 credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why?
It's just the sweet spot. So typically what that allows, it allows your credit utilization ratio to be the healthiest, because your credit utilization is essentially how much of your credit you're using divided by how much you have access to. So say one of your credit cards offers you a $10,000 limit. If you actually spend more than 30% of your credit limit, that dings your credit score. So you can't put more than $3,000 worth of charges on that card.
What?
Yeah, girl. So you can't do that. Otherwise, that dings your credit score.
I had no idea. No.
So then say you have, 5 cards that each offer you a $10,000 credit limit. Now your credit limit is $30,000 to $50,000. So you put $3,000 here, $3,000 here, whatever. And so you're under the 30% utilization. And that helps you get to a point where your credit score can be as high as possible. You don't want to spend more than 30% on any one revolving line of credit, so credit card. But the really amazing trick is if you can spend less than 10%, that'll really help supercharge and boost your score.
We spend money. I spend money on dumb shit. Like, we had a company that I like called Rocket Money, where they go through and they,
and they find your subscriptions.
They find your subscriptions. I just started doing that. But I spend money on dumb shit. Postmates, Uber Eats, like DoorDash.
Okay, well, I wouldn't say those are dumb. I spend all my money on that too.
No, but it adds up.
It does.
What are some tips and tricks, especially for the youth out there who are just starting? And I want to also you want that first apartment, you want that house, you want to be a contributor. Like, how do you get there? But the dumb stuff, how can we cut some of that out?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to sit here and actually rag on delivery services, because I, as someone who has very, very little time, love using them. I rarely cook. If I do cook, it's like food out of a box, like a HelloFresh, where it's like all the ingredients are pretty much taken care of for you. You just kind of put it together in the bowl. But it's just because I'm so time poor. But you need to ask yourself, are you cash poor or time poor? And when I was 22, I had a lot of time and no money. And now I have a lot of money and absolutely no time. So I am willing to pay for convenience. However, in my early 20s, was it responsible for me to be necessarily using those platforms in the same way? Probably not, because I should have gotten my butt off of my couch and walked and gotten my own food, or God forbid, gone to the grocery store and cooked my own food. So you need to think about what is your convenience worth. So there's a little equation that can help you figure out if a purchase is actually worth your money. I call it the Your Rich BFF, is it worth it equation. So when we go to the store and we see the price of something, it's shown in dollars. And the problem is we actually have no concept of what the value of a dollar is. And I don't mean to like sound like your dad or anything. It's not that you don't work hard. It's not that you are irresponsible. It's that we can't actually conceptualize what that means. But what we can conceptualize is time. So what I ask people to do is calculate your hourly take-home pay. So like, what do you get paid after taxes for sitting at your desk for 1 hour? And then you are going to take the cost of that purchase and divide it by your hourly take-home pay. So say you're at the store and you want to get a pair of leggings. Your hourly take-home pay is $20. The leggings are $100. 100 divided by 20. You have to sit at your desk for 5 hours to pay for those leggings. Is that worth it? Maybe for the first pair of leggings, but for the 100th, certainly not. Mm-hmm. If you want to DoorDash yourself a nice little lunch, it's $30. Your hourly take-home pay is $20. You have to sit at your desk for an hour and a half to get that DoorDash. Are we doing it?
We're doing it.
On some days, we are.
Yeah.
Because you're tired, you need food, you're hangry. But on other days, you're like, I can't really justify that. I'll go do something for lunch. I'll like make it myself. I'll, grab a smoothie, like do something different. And this value-based spending equation, this Your Rich BFF, is it worth it equation, it essentially helps you visualize what you have to give up to have something. And that teaches us what is and is not worth our money, but more importantly, worth our time.
That's so interesting. I mean,
I love that. It's funny. I have thought about that in scenarios sometimes, more so when I was working, because I worked in fashion, and it was like I, would see something. I'd be like, God, I have to sit at this desk for like a week straight to pay for this purse. I'd be like, yep, it's worth it. but
you've gotten better.
I genuinely have gotten better, but it's
just also being mindful, right? Like also focusing. Sometimes you don't focus. Like sometimes I'll go on Amazon and I'm like, why did I buy that? Right? Like, I know that sounds weird, but like, I'm like, why did I do that? Like,
can I give you guys a piece of advice that my mentor gave me? And it's been one of the best pieces of advice of my life. Nothing ever feels as good as your first bag. So when I got my first year bonus, having worked on Wall Street, I grinded. I mean, I was working 14 hours a day. I literally hated my life, but it was fine. But I had finally gotten this bonus and I was like, I am going to go buy myself a bag. And I remember this bag so vividly because I'd lusted after it for so long. It was a black Saffiano leather Prada bag. The interior was red. It was so sexy. It was an executive tote. It was like perfect for work, but it fit my laptop. And it was just the most stunning thing I'd ever seen. And when I bought that, I felt such a deep sense of satisfaction, not because I had this new bag, but because it represented all of my hard work. And it was this like milestone achievement. But after that, I started to make a little bit more money, whatever. And I bought this like very boring beige, like sling over the shoulder crossbody bag. It was another designer. I'm not even going to name names, but I did not get that same feeling. I rushed into the decision. It ended up being really impractical. The hardware didn't go with any of the jewelry that I had. It didn't look that great once I actually paired it with an outfit. And I was like, I spent $2,500 on this. $2,500 could have paid for like a small weekend vacation to a nice place. Like, why did I do that? And I was like, maybe the next bag will be the first one again. Nope, wasn't. The next bag wasn't. The bag after that wasn't. I had to learn that lesson a dozen times before I realized that nothing will ever feel as good as that first bag, because that was blood, sweat, and tears money. And it represented something, and every bag after that was just a bag.
I do believe in, I used to be a terrible impulse purchaser. Like I would see something in the rush, and I now will walk away from something. I rarely will buy a bag or a pair of shoes just like that.
Yeah.
I'll be like, you know what? Put it on hold. Let me think about it. And if I really want it, I'm going to come back and get it. And I feel like if you wake up, and again, I love fashion. Like I do love a handbag. for some godforsaken reason, it does bring me joy. It's pathetic, I know, but it really does.
No, it's not pathetic. It's not pathetic.
I love it.
You just can't have 5 of them every 6 months, right? You have
totally.
to have 3 a year. You can't have
You can have anything, not everything though. Because at the end of the day, we have a finite number of resources and you are going to have to make prioritization decisions of what you value. Like there's going to be a handbag that is the handbag to rule them all, and that handbag will be worth it. But in between each handbag that is worth it, you can't buy every other one because you won't have the money for the one that really matters.
We've got, moms listening, kids listening, everyone in between. For someone who really wants to buy that house in the next few years, where do you even begin and what should we be doing right now? And then I want to also talk about the debate of rent versus buy, lease versus buy.
Yeah. So I would say if you really, really want to own a home, I would look at the area you live in. And you need to do a little bit of math to see if that math even maths with the amount of money you're making. Because sometimes your first purchase doesn't need to be your primary home. You can rent your primary home and buy an investment property somewhere else. I know so many people, we're in LA right now. So many people who live in LA are like, it is way too expensive to buy my primary home here because for $1 million, you get a pretty basic home. For $1 million, I can get a 4-plex in Oklahoma or Arizona. And not only can I then rent that out to 4 different couples and get them to pay for my mortgage and help me build wealth through real estate, but it gives them an opportunity to have that sense of ownership without needing it to be their primary residence, because your primary residence may not always be the asset that actually appreciates, especially in high cost of living areas. Whether you should rent or buy is entirely a personal decision. If you guys do want to check out a cool resource, the New York Times actually did a rent versus buy calculator. So it'll ask you questions like how much is your rent, or like how much is your mortgage payment? What would like a corresponding rent or mortgage payment be? Or like how much would a house that you would be willing to live in look like? What would that cost? What are the interest rates right now? Are there HOA fees? Are there anything else? You put all of this information in the calculator, and then it calculates how much money you would save doing one or the other.
That's so interesting. I would love to do that.
Yeah, it's a fun little tool to play around with. And what did I realize? My husband and I, we bought our primary residence in New York City. I own an apartment in New York, and I love my apartment. But dang, I didn't know I was gonna have to pay to replace the toilets myself. I didn't know that those monthly common charges for what? I don't even have a gym in my building. Like, things do add up outside of just the mortgage payment, and you forget about that. So I don't want to say homeownership isn't what it's cracked up to be, because in some cases it definitely is. We've painted walls, we've, swapped out finishes, we've done everything that we've wanted with this place. But it also comes with a lot of responsibility. It comes with a lot of headaches. So when you are thinking about real estate, ask yourself, am I making an emotional purchase, which is okay, or am I making a financial one? And if it's a financial one, would I be better off investing in a real estate property versus buying my primary home?
I think renting gets a bad rap.
It does get a really bad rap, but also if you're renting and you're saving a bunch of money versus owning a place, you can't just spend that money. Let's be clear. For it to be a better financial decision, that money then, that difference, that number difference then needs to actually be invested in other assets that are making you money. Because if you had bought the home, that home would hopefully appreciate in value. You would essentially likely be able to sell it for a similar, if not more. So yes, renting gets a really bad rap. I don't think it's a terrible thing to do. But if you are renting, you have to remember that your money isn't naturally growing. You're throwing money into a black pit. And so your money that is not being spent on that mortgage payment needs to be hard at work for you, growing, so that you can have more in the future.
What do you say to women who are listening to this and aren't married and are single, and maybe they're in their 40s and they haven't bought their first home and they are wasting their money on rent? What do you think is the smartest strategy for them to start to think differently about building their wealth and maybe stepping back, and maybe it's buying a home that isn't their number one choice, but it's an investment?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, for the folks who are in their 40s, who are single, who, are really in that phase of their career, you have never had more power than now, right? Because in your 20s, you got nothing going on for you. In your 30s, you're just starting to hit your stride. But your 40s, that is when some of that real money is made. And if you are not demanding a 10 to 15% raise at work every single year, you're missing out on money. Like, you need to be a top performer. So make sure you actually are doing a good job. But from there, don't be shy about asking for more, because these are some of your primary earning years. And you want to make sure you are maximizing that, especially if you are single, if you don't have children. Like, you have taken an uninterrupted 20-year period in the workforce. You should be asking for more, always demanding more, always moving yourself forward. And what I like to say is that, like, the top quarter of the workforce, no matter how bad the economy gets, the top quarter always gets paid. The bottom quarter probably gets fired. The middle 50%, like, you're just kind of treading water. But the top quarter, if you are part of the top quarter, you will always get paid. You just need to ask for it.
So would you say rent or buy if you were that person?
Again, it's so geographically specific because some markets are so much more expensive to buy a primary home. But if you have interest, like, you could certainly consider a fixer-upper if you want to put money into that and flip it. You could consider an investment property in a different location.
I want to talk, a lot of our moms who listen to us have kids. They're starting their first, array into adulting or trying to adult. If you could give us a couple of tips as moms, we have younger kids.
Yeah.
My son's getting his first little green light card. I think it's called a green light. I was trying to do it yesterday. Any suggestions on, he's graduating from 6th grade. They're taking a finance course for the day.
Yeah.
They're taking a day off
that they're
of
doing
all
that.
their regular curriculum and kind of trying to break it down. But what can us moms do instead of just putting money on that card? Like, is there any tips? Should they, have a banking account, a savings account, a credit card? Like, give us a little bit of a map.
Yeah, I think it's really smart. Emma's already doing this, but considering a 529 for your kids to help save for educational costs.
I do that.
Not only can that be used $10,000 a year for private school now, but for higher education costs, both college as well as trade school, culinary school, whatever your kid wants to do. I would say consider a custodial Roth IRA once they get to that age where they can start mowing lawns or babysitting or tutoring. As long as you keep an accurate ledger, you can take the money that they make and work with them to contribute it into the custodial Roth IRA, and then you can help them invest it, and it'll just really, really help set them up for success for their future retirement. One thing that I think goes unspoken about is talking to your kids about money. We have like kids who will ask their parents, like, Mom, Dad, like, how much does the house cost? And they're like, little Jenna, don't ask that. That's like not polite. Okay. Little Jenna gets a little older and they're like, Mom, Dad, like, how much do you make? And they're like, oh, Jenna, that's not polite. Don't ask that. And then all of a sudden Jenna turns 18, 21, and they're like, Jenna, you better have all the finances figured out. And Jenna's like, wait, I asked you all of these questions. You never talked to me about this. And so I think it's really powerful. And this is all about having age-appropriate conversations. You don't need to tell, your 6-year-old about the mortgage. But having age-appropriate financial conversations makes it less of a icky topic when they're an adult. It allows them to have the vocabulary even just to talk about what they need and what help they might want from you guys. So if you explain to them how interest rates work, of like, interest rates can be good. This can be what you are earning, but it can also be bad. It can be what you're owing. They can then talk to you about that in the future when they are considering investing in their own portfolio, or, consider taking on a loan for a car or, a home purchase or something like that. So talking to them about money is really important. And then
I think they get very prideful when they work hard and they get something. Like, remember last summer, Brooks had a shoe polishing business. He polished like, I don't even know how many sets of people's random shoes, but He was very proud, right? Like the little
They want to
things,
have
the chores.
agency. They want to be able to like earn money. They don't just want you to like, listen, I think it's nice. Like some kids are like, yeah, mom and dad just like give me the money. But like when you actually teach a man to fish instead of giving him the fish, like you're setting them up for broader success later down the line.
If someone could do one thing in each stage of life to get ahead financially, what would it be? Your 20s.
20s, you are opening up a IRA or Roth IRA and making sure that you are contributing to it regularly and that it's actually invested. You can't just put the cash in. You have to pick investments. That's what you do in your 20s.
30s.
30s, this is for making sure you are picking the right financial partner. The most important financial decision you'll ever make is actually your spouse. You are legally aligning yourself with them, and you cannot afford to have a hater at home. You cannot afford to have somebody who does not support you. Studies have shown that if you have a conscientious partner, you'll actually earn 4% more every single year. So pick the right spouse.
Ooh, I love that. 40s.
40s is for demanding your worth. You should have been doing this in your 20s and 30s, but really your 40s are when those pay packages can get very lucrative. So if you can, if you have the ability to, this is where we're negotiating for those. Sometimes you switch jobs, you're asking for 2-3x. You are not going to settle. You are making sure that you are asking for that 15% raise every single year, and you are making it a point to try and get it.
50s.
50s are amazing because you kind of like hit a really good peak in your career. What I like to call this is the catch-up zone. So if you feel behind with your 401k or with your IRA or with any sort of retirement savings, you can actually contribute more than the rest of us. So you are actually able to catch up with any sort of mistakes you might have made in the first 3 decades.
Gosh, we should have had you as a friend earlier on. Shouldn't have we?
I'd be really rich right now.
Yeah.
What's your go-to rich girl splurge that's 100% worth it?
Eyelash extensions. I go every 3 weeks. I do not miss an appointment. Shout out to Primp Daddy. Morgan, my lash guy. I have known this man longer than I've known my husband.
And by the way, your lashes look, your skin, as we're going to ask you. Online shopping or in person?
Online.
If you could only use one makeup product, what would it be?
Okay, Charlotte Tilbury Plumpgasm. I hate how that word makes me feel when I have to say it out loud, but the product is amazing. It's a good tingle, so it helps to plump, but it's also the perfect pillow talk shade.
Last book you read?
Okay, is this embarrassing? A Court of Thorn and Roses.
I love. Preferred type of workout?
I like to box.
Do you watch one episode at a time or are you a binge watcher?
I'm a binger.
What's your favorite show?
Right now, and you guys would love this, you have to try it. It's called Your Friends and Neighbors.
Everybody
on Apple TV. It's so good.
John Hamm, everybody loves it. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Favorite cocktail?
I do a single shot of chilled tequila and then a water, and then I alternate tequila, water, tequila, water. I don't really do a cocktail because when they add the sugar and the syrups and the stuff like that, I get a headache.
Biggest pet peeve?
Slow walkers.
The worst.
No, I lied. My biggest pet peeve is people who say they're going to do something and then they don't follow through. And then I feel like you're the boy who cried wolf, but I also feel crazy asking you if you did it. And it just makes me not trust you.
Introvert or extrovert?
For me personally, I feel like I used to be more of an extrovert when I was younger, but now I really value like my introverted Friday nights where it's just me and my husband. We get some really good takeout and we watch a movie.
Hair up or hair down?
Hair down.
Signature scent. You have great hair. Signature scent.
Brooklyn Ellis, Myth.
Love. 3 things we don't know about you.
I was a cheerleader in college. Nobody ever pegs that. I cut off the tip of my finger on my 25th birthday because I was getting ready to go to the bar to go get drunk. And I was like, I'm going to make myself a sandwich. I am very untalented in the kitchen. And I took a bread knife and on a baguette, and I saw a piece of my finger fall onto the counter.
Oh my God, I almost did this in the Hampton.
And I had to go to the ER, and it was the worst birthday party of my life, but it did grow back because I was 25 and like a little salamander, very, very resilient. And then the third fun fact is I am an absolute like sneakerhead. like the hype beast, like when people are waiting in line for like Jordans and Supreme
That's
shoes,
you?
and I don't even wait in the line because guess what? I got them 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God. My son is obsessed with sneakers. He wants to stay in the line. Stage fright or confident queen?
Confident.
If you could give advice to your 10-year-old self, what would it be?
Just remember that the world is bigger than the neighborhood that you were raised in. I think I grew up in an area where people were middle class, upper middle class, and they didn't want for much more. But I always had my sights set on some bigger aspirations. And I didn't necessarily see people who looked like me on screen or represented as having the possibility of making that happen. But when I got a little older, went to college, got my first mentor, my first manager, I saw the world open up, and it's never been the same since.
I love that.
Well, the world is lucky to have you, Vivian Tu. Let me tell you, you guys can follow her at your .rich BFF. Check out her book, Rich AF. Love. And you guys have to binge her podcast wherever you get your podcast at Net Worth and Chill. You are, for no pun intended, but you are a wealth of information.
Thank you so much.
And you're beautiful. And listen, it's hard to save money. It's hard to adult. Make sure and follow us at Lipstick on the Rim. We will see you guys next week. Vivian Tu, you're amazing. I hope you're having a good summer. We're not gonna save money this summer. We're just gonna be honest with you. Because we're gonna be together.
But come fall, it's our time.
But come fall, we're trying to go to Europe together. So we're going to do the DJ. We're going to do everything. Yeah. Come fall, we're in it to win it. Thanks for listening to Lipstick on the Rim with Molly Sims and my ride or die, Emisha Gormley. We are so excited to bring you guys along on this journey with us. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Lipstick on the Rim and at Molly B. Sims. Or you can go to my blog where you can dive just a little bit deeper into my favorite products, trends, and more at mollysims.substack.com. And don't forget to check out our video episodes on my YouTube channel, Molly Sims. This podcast is a production with Sony Music. I wanted to give a special thanks to my team, Rosie Cummings, Kenna Ryan, Safine Kevorkian, and everyone at Sony Music. Don't forget to listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss out on the fun.